And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer.
Howdy folks, I'm Darren. Welcome to 8th Day Chronicles here at Cross Timbers Farm. Glad to have you with us on this overcast day. At least it's not ice cold again. We're in the 40s and a pretty stiff wind blowing today. I'd say 15 miles an hour with a gust 25, 30. That seems to have been the routine lately in the wind. But we're out here on the farm today, and last night I was sitting in our home and I was doing some reading and studying on electric fences. And sometimes I tend to overstudy about some of this stuff and overthink it. But I always want to have the best fence we can have with what we have in place to get the most out of it possible. Number one, to keep predators out. Number two is to keep our livestock in. And our number one predator on this farm is not bears, it's not coyotes, it's not bobcats. It's the neighbors' dogs. Not all our neighbors. Some of our neighbors have dogs that keep them home and keep them on their property. 2 thumbs up to those folks. We do have some folks in this area, and we live in a rural area, and we have folks that just bring a dog home and just turn it out in their yard and put a little food bowl on their porch, and they go to work during the day, and that dog just roams the 3 or 4 mile radius around home all day long, chasing cattle, chasing sheep, chasing goats, chasing deer all day long. That's our number one predator on this farm, is keeping Fido out of our pastures and away from our sheep. And when we had goats, keeping them away from our goats. We had one goat get chewed up pretty bad one time by a neighborhood dog. And the wind's about to blow my hat off. So last night I was doing some reading. I want to get all the energy out of this fence we can possibly get. And we have on each side of our fences, this one is a high tensile fence. This one in the middle and the west field are not high tensile, but they're smooth wire, 12 gauge smooth wire. But the front is high tensile. And we have like 6 or 8 strands of hot wire on this front. But we have what I call a filler wire, F-I-L-L-E-R, filler. We had a couple of spaces when we had goat kids that I felt something could possibly get out or an animal get through. So we put another smooth wire as a filler. Here's a hot wire, here's a hot wire. We run another wire between them as a filler to fill that void, that space, with another wire. And that wire is not hot. That's what I call a cold wire. We have hot wires and cold wires. On this front pasture, we only have 3 cold wires. We have 6 hot wires. So I got to thinking, your electrical system is only as good as your ground. Your grounding system is a critical component of your electric fence. We use 6-foot galvanized grounding rods spaced 10 feet apart. On the front pasture we have 3. On the middle and the back one, on that charger there, we have 3. Spaced 10 feet apart, galvanized rods. I got to thinking and doing some reading that you can use your cold wire, if you have a cold wire in your system, and we do on both sides. Up here we have a smooth cold wire, and in the back we have spaced our electric between all those strands of barbed wire. Every one of those strands that's cold are directly connected to a T-post and tied off to it. I got to thinking, why don't I run a jumper from the very last grounding rod off that grounding rod, which they're all attached to the charger, up to that bottom cold wire. That way, every T-post drove in the ground all the way around this front pasture and the back pastures are acting like additional grounding rods to run that grounding connection back to that charger. I thought about it. Why not do that? At least test it and see how that theory works out. I connected the front east field. It contains the test plot. I connected a little short wire, and our grounding rods are pretty close to the fence. From that grounding rod, the clamp on it, over to the first lowest cold wire. Before that, let me back up a little bit. Before that, that's on that Parmac Solar Pack 12 charger. It was putting out about 6,500 volts, which is that's a perfect amount for sheep and goats. We then ran that jumper over to the cold wire, turned the fence back on, put the tester to it, and we gained almost 1,000 volts. It went from 6,500 volts to about 7,300 volts. So about 800 volts. We gained just by running a wire that long from that ground rod over to the cold wire. Now, that worked so well, I did it on the back. The one we've just reinstalled, that DIY system. Same results. Now, this backfield is done in sections, so it's not connecting every T-post all the way around, but it is connecting about 12 or 13 T-post down this one section. I run a jumper over to it, and we've got our charger right now set on low power. Before we run the wire on low power, it was putting out about 6,500 volts, about like the front. Soon as I run that little jumper wire from the very last ground rod that's in line, the last one, run it over to a cold wire, a piece of barbed wire that's tied in to all the T-posts. It went from about 6,500 to about 7,400, just with a piece of fencing wire that long. 2 thumbs up. Gained us really good power. And when we connect the west field onto this DIY charger and turn it up on high power, we should really get some good power. I didn't test it on high power, but I did test it on the low power setting. And I went back to the west field, connected that fence on, and if in our last video you saw us doing all that work on that field, and it's done. I turned the power on yesterday. 2 thumbs up, that west field's working. No issues. We got that one on the first try with all of our repairs, broken insulators, things of that nature, and all that where those trees went through that fixed, and nothing shorted out, no faults in it. I went out there earlier, since I'd done this little jumper to the ground, to the bottom barbed wire up here, went back there and tested it, and we also gained about 800 volts on that back fence. Can't go wrong there. The expense of about 5 cents worth of wire to gain 800 to 1,000 volts on your fence, 2 thumbs up. Let me show you that. Oftentimes, just simple things Stop and think about your fence system, and simple things can really improve your fence performance. Let me show you what we've done over here. It's really simple. These sheep doing their thing on the test plot. Isn't that a pretty one right there? That's number one. Here's our ground system on this Parmac charger. Right over on this side is a switch, and it goes right down. You can see the bare wire. It goes right down into an insulator and goes underground to right there. There's grounding rod number one. The wire comes up in that. The wire's underground. It goes to number two, right there. And then right over here to number three. Okay. You can see I simply took a piece of wire, 12 gauge wire, connected it into that clamp, run it right up onto the fence and tied it off. That's a cold strand. Now, these cold strands are every one, just like this, tied off right there, just like this, with a T-post clip to the T-post. The T-post is naturally drove into the ground, essentially making every T-post around this east field, our front field, a grounding rod to a degree. Now, T-posts are not the best grounding rod material to use. That steel that's painted and all that, but it can't hurt to have more. We have these galvanized 6-foot grounding rods 10 feet apart in the ground, going 6 feet deep or 5.5 feet deep. And now we have T-posts all the way around this field, tied in with that cold wire, tied into the ground system that's assisting sending electricity back and making that circuit to the charger to give a better shock and get more voltage on the fence. We gained 1,000 volts back to our charger and to the fence, the shock it's delivering, just from about a 6-8 inch piece of soft electric wire. About 5 cents worth of wire, or maybe not even that much. We done the same thing on our DIY charger system and gained between 800 and 1,000 volts. Lots of times when you check your fence, you can check your fence in different places, and why would that one back there vary between 800 and 1,000? Depending on where you put your probe in the ground will depend on how good the shock delivers, because soil conditions matter. You could have stuck that probe in right in a rocky pile or a sandy place, somewhere that's not going to conduct electricity as good. And sometimes you can pull that ground probe on that tester out and move it a foot, stick it back in the ground and test your fence again and get a higher reading. It just depends on the soil type. We're getting between 800 and 1,000 more volts on that middle fence with that charger on half power than we were before. And look at these sheep eating on this test plot, going to town. Well, it's the next day and we're in the shop working today. It is raining pretty steady outside. Started about an hour ago, and it's about midday now, about noon. And the rain started about an hour ago. And I done some stuff outside this morning, and now I'm in the shop probably, according to the weather folks, for the rest of the day. At least till evening time to go take care of the poultry and water for the sheep and things like that. Speaking of the sheep, when the rain started, I watched those sheep out in the field. They're in the test plot. And one by one, when that rain started picking up, they filtered right up and went right in that shed. And I went out and took a peek in there, not to disturb them, around the corner of the barn, and they're all four lying in that shed chewing their cud out of the rain. We've been in the shop. I've been testing some things. Anytime you're working with electrical equipment like solar panels and our solar fence charger, this tool is invaluable. This is a Klein Tools multimeter. Check the voltage coming from your solar panels or wattage, things of that nature, the current flow, how it's going, you can see it. This is a good multimeter. I've got right here one of these little dirt cheap multimeters from my Harbor Freight. This thing was like $7 or $8 and it worked for about a year and it's quit working. So instead of those little cheap ones, just buying another one of those cheap ones and replacing it every year, I just went ahead a while back and bought a really good Klein Tools multimeter. This is a good multimeter. And I've been checking some things. As soon as this rain stops, we're going to check the wattage from that 30-watt solar panel on our DIY system. And I talked a little bit about we had ordered a 50-watt solar panel to replace that 30-watt. So when we turn that fence on high power, when we power the back west field off of it as well, it's putting more joules out to that fence to go a further distance. I compare joules to like water pressure. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. The higher that water pressure is, the further it'll squirt out the end of your water hose, it'll spray. Well, I look at joules the same way. When a fence charger is putting out more joules, it's more pressure, and when something touches that fence, just like a water leak, it'll really spray out and it'll push further. The more pressure will push water further. Kind of the same way I look at joules in electricity on a fence charger. Okay, we're going to check some things on that 30-watt panel as soon as the rain quits with this multimeter. However, today the delivery truck came and brought us a 50-watt solar panel. It's a different brand, but we're not talking 100, 200, 300 watt solar panels here. It's a 50-watt panel, and it had really good reviews. So we're going to try the 50-watt running both fences on high power. The 30-watt solar panel, when I turn that thing on high power, is having a little problems keeping up, putting enough power back into that battery. The 50-watt should solve our problem. And if it don't, I'm just going to order some connectors off the internet and connect the 30-watt and the 50-watt together, and then run the lead down to the battery or the charge controller for 80 watts. It might not get a full 80 watts. I don't know. I'm not a solar expert, but I would think I'd at least get 70. So in perfect 72 degrees, with your solar panels aimed exactly perfect, with the sun the brightest it can be, say the summer solstice, right on them, they're supposed to get 50 watts and 30 watts in perfect condition, so that'd be 80 watts. I think the 50-watt one will do it, but that's yet to be seen. We're going to unbox this 50-watt panel, take a look at it. First, we're going to have us a cup of coffee. I've got my buddy heater running right over here on the floor. That little buddy heater is awesome. And it's kind of cold out today. It is about 45 degrees, which is not bad, but when you factor in about a 10-mile-an-hour wind and it raining steady, that moisture in the air just makes it feel so cold. Not much better than a good cup of coffee. Look at the steam coming off that coffee. Oh, it's good. Okay, let's unbox this solar panel carefully. Solar panels are fragile, obviously. So we're going to not just take a utility knife or our case pocket knife and just start cutting into things. We're going to unbox this thing carefully. Lift it out. Okay, it's packaged good. Can you see it's got the styrofoam on all the corners? Okay, I don't want to leave that thing just balancing there. So we'll set the box aside. Okay, let's make sure there's no real scratches or anything. Okay, this solar panel's in good shape. Sure appears to be. Okay, this one has different terminals than what our 30-watt one has, which tells me I'm going to end up having to order some plugs, some connectors. I think they call them MP4 connectors. Okay, here is a inspection certificate saying it passed inspection with a date of 4/7 of 25. So this thing, it was made in April of this year, so it's a new panel. We've got the panel just laying here on the table with these fluorescent and LED lights. We got a combination of both in our shop shining on this panel. Let's see if it's even putting out any voltage here. We got our Klein multimeter set on DC. All right, and we're just going to connect our connectors to it. It's putting out 19 volts right here in the shop. Well, it's bouncing between 18.9 and 1900. Okay, if I move my hand over it and block a little of it, it goes down to 18.6. Take my arm off, back up to 19. So it's putting out 19 volts just right there, here in the shop. So this thing's working. If you do any kind of solar work on a fence charger like we're doing, or just electrical work around your house, this thing is invaluable when it comes to working on a solar panel fence charger to test everything. If you don't have a good multimeter, I'd highly suggest buying you one. When you start buying your components to build a DIY fence charger, go ahead and buy yourself a good multimeter. And I would highly recommend these Klein Tools multimeters. They're not terribly expensive. You can buy one of these for, you know, around $30, $40. And they're a good instrument, and they'll last you a lifetime if you take care of it. We have the MP4 connectors on this solar panel, and we are going to have to order some solar MP4 connectors. Our 30-watt panel does not have MP4 connectors. This panel does, and I'm going to have to order some additional MP4 connectors to make all this work. So that'll be our next project. Yesterday we talked about upping the power on our fence system just by running a jumper wire. And today we were hoping to install this solar panel, but we got two problems. Number one, it's pouring rain out. Number two, we're going to have to order some more MP4 connectors before we can get it connected. Got our solar panel back in the box till we get some more connectors. Pouring the rain out, we're just going to stay in the shop and enjoy a good hot cup of coffee. Well, we came out to the farm, had some projects to do in the barn. I've got one of my gathering wheels in my hand. See if I can't get these tines tightened to where they keep wanting to turn. See if I can come up with a solution to that. Plus, we got a project going on with the gathering wheels that I'll share later. But I was hoping today that we could make our first rotational move with the sheep. Move them from the test plot over to the other side of our east pasture that's real steep where we can't cut hay. And it's full, I mean full of good grass. The sheep's done a real good job on the test plot side. And there's still plenty of grass in that test plot, but they've been in that test plot for like 12 days, going on 2 weeks. And I was hoping to move them today, but it's starting to rain pretty good again. I'm standing under the eave of the barn here, and the rain's starting to come back down. I came out about 30 minutes ago because it's starting to slack off and it got down to just a drizzle. Now it's starting to pick back up, and according to the radar, it's going to rain the rest of the evening pretty steady. So we're in a little bit of a lull, but it's starting to pick back up. So I'm not going to move these sheep in the rain and set up a rotational fence in the rain. They'll just have to stay where they are. They're actually in the shed laying down chewing their cud in there in the dry. So I had a comment on one of the other videos. I said that the sheep wouldn't go in the sheds. They just refused to. Well, they're in them now. They've got used to them. They're slowly getting used to Oakley. They don't just run from her anymore. They just kind of still stare at her with a little bit of suspicion, but they're not just running from her anymore. They want to keep their distance, 20 yards from her. But when she gets within 20 yards, they don't turn and run off anymore. So they just stare at her like, don't get any closer. So, and Susan had them eating out of her hand this morning. So she put a little bit of grain in her hand. We are planning on not grain feeding these sheep, period, except to move them. And when we move them in our rotational system, those sheep need a reason to really want to follow you anywhere you're going. And if you can shake some feed in a bucket and they know what that is, then they really like it and they'll want to follow you to get it. It's like candy to them. And it's a sweet mix feed. And in order for them to realize what sweet feed is and what's in that bucket, you have to give them some. So we've been giving them just handfuls occasionally to get them to know what that is. And they like it. I don't know any sheep or goats that don't like sweet feed. And they like it. So that's going to be our lure to move them from field to field. And if something happened and a tree fell across the fence or something and they ever got out, that's our way to lead them back into the field. Just get them to follow you. Shake that bucket of sweet feed every time we give them some of it. And we're only doing this to learn them what it is. Once they know what it is, they will get no more grain until we move them. And you can't tease them. When you shake it and get them to follow you, then you got to give them a little bit of it or they'll just quit coming to it. So we were going to move them today, but the weather's just not conducive. I'm not going to get out here and string poly wire and move the rotational fence in the pouring rain. I'm just not. So maybe tomorrow. It's supposed to be really, really windy tomorrow. They said up to 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts of wind, but it's supposed to be dry. So we're going to get out here tomorrow and move a shed, and we're possibly going to another farm this weekend to look. We've not made any decision yet, but we're going to go look at a new livestock guardian dog puppy. You really got to pay attention to a pup's parents, and both the parents are on the farm, so we can visit with the sire and the dam and see their temperament, see how they react to strangers, how they are around people, and how they are around livestock. They are in with livestock, so it's a couple-hour drive, and we're going to look at a Great Pyrenees puppy. So we've had Pyrenees before, and we're familiar with them, but temperament is everything with a big dog like that. So we're going to go look at the temperament of these Pyrenees, the parents, and spend just a little bit of time there getting to know them, seeing how the parents interact with livestock and all that. The puppies supposedly have been in with these livestock also, basically since they were born, and big enough to get out of wander around a little bit. They've been exposed to chickens and ducks, goats, and cattle. So they've not been around any sheep, but if they've been around goats and chickens and cattle, then sheep, that's just another thing. They should be fine. So we're going to hopefully go in a couple days and look at a puppy. In the meantime, I got some work to do on this, and hopefully tomorrow we're going to move our first rotational move for the sheep, so weather dependent. Thanks for being with us. I really appreciate it on this cold, dreary, rainy day. We're going to head back into the shop and do a little more work and go from there. Thank you for being with us. I really, really appreciate it. And by the way, Merry Christmas to all of our viewers and subscribers. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. 2025 for our little channel has been a good year. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. I pray God blesses you and your family. And we pray y'all have a fantastic day. Wow, it's cold out here. Let's get back to my shop.